Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're heading back to ancient Rome, exploring the world of Gladiator II. This is the sequel to Ridley Scott's epic, masterpiece.
Yeah.
And we're going to be digging into that critical response. We're going to be dissecting the themes and characters and just seeing if this new film manages to capture the spirit of the original while forging its own path.
It's definitely an ambitious undertaking.
Absolutely.
The original Gladiator left such an impact, on cinema
For sure.
that I think anything attempting to follow in its footsteps is going to face, some scrutiny.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gladiator ended with Maximus's death in the arena,
Right.
a moment that resonated with audiences for its sheer emotional power.
Yeah.
So where do you even go from there?
Yeah.
Well, Gladiator II picks up the story years later, focusing on Lucius,
Okay.
the young nephew of Commodus,
Uh-huh.
who was deeply affected by Maximus's heroism.
Right.
Remember that iconic scene where a young Lucius touches Maximus's armor?
Yes.
Like as a kid?
That scene, yeah, definitely foreshadowed Lucius's admiration, for Maximus.
For sure.
And in the sequel, we see him all grown up now, played by Paul Mescal,
Right.
grappling with the legacy of the legendary Gladiator.
Yeah, and of course the big reveal is that Lucius is actually Maximus's son,
Oh, wow.
a detail that wasn't explicitly mentioned in the original film.
Okay.
This connection adds a whole new layer of complexity to his character and his journey.
So it's a bold choice for sure.
Yeah,
It immediately raises the question of whether Lucius can live up to the legacy of his father.
right.
Eric Kane, in his Forbes review, is quite critical of Lucius,
Okay.
arguing that he lacks the commanding presence and gravitas that made Maximus such a compelling character.
Yeah.
He even compares him unfavorably to Rey from the Star Wars sequel trilogy,
Oh, what?
another character who struggled to step out of the shadow of a legendary predecessor.
That's a really interesting comparison. Both Gladiator II and The Force Awakens attempt to continue beloved stories by introducing new characters who are connected to the original heroes.
Right.
It seems like filmmakers are often faced with this challenge. How do you honor the past while still creating something new and exciting?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a delicate balance to strike.
It is.
Lean too heavily on the original, and you risk accusations of rehashing old ideas.
For sure.
Stray too far, and you might alienate the fan base who are looking for that familiar connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how does Gladiator II navigate this challenge? What kind of story does it try to tell?
At its core, Gladiator II is a story about legacy
Okay.
and the ways in which the past shapes the present.
Okay.
It's about Lucius coming to terms with who he is, both as an individual and as the son of Maximus.
Huh?
But it also introduces new characters and storylines that expand the world of Gladiator in interesting ways.
Like Denzel Washington as Marcinus the Gladiator trainer,
Right,
a character with a mysterious past and his own ambitions.
right. Kane describes Marcinus as having blurry motivations,
Okay.
which on the one hand could be seen as a criticism of the writing,
Sure.
but on the other hand, it could also suggest a level of complexity and ambiguity to the character that makes him more intriguing.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most compelling characters are those whose motivations aren't immediately clear, who operate in those shades of gray.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's Pedro Pascal
All right.
as General Marcus Acacius,
Okay.
a character who seems to embody some of the same qualities as Maximus' bravery, honor, a sense of justice.
Right.
Kane calls him Maximus Light,
Wow.
which could be interpreted as a way of saying that the film is trying to recapture some of that magic from the original.
Yeah.
But it could also be a way of highlighting the idea that certain values and ideals transcend time and individuals.
It's almost like the film is suggesting that the spirit of Maximus lives on not just in his son,
Right.
but in others who fight for what they believe in.
Oh.
It's a really interesting way to explore the theme of legacy.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the Roman emperors,
Yes.
Caracalla and Geta, played by Joseph Quinn and Fred Hetchinger.
Oh, wow.
These characters represent the dark side of power,
Yeah.
the corruption and madness that can consume those who wield it.
Right.
Kane particularly highlights Caracalla's descent into madness,
Okay.
contrasting it with his genuine affection for his pet monkey, Dondus.
A pet monkey.
Yes,
Now, that's something I didn't expect.
right.
It sounds like Ridley Scott is trying to inject some unexpected elements into this sequel, playing with our expectations.
For sure.
But is it working? Is this mix of familiar and new actually creating a compelling story?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And I think it's a question that audiences will have to answer for themselves.
I think so too.
But one thing's for sure, Gladiator the Sick is a film that's generating a lot of conversation, and that's a testament to its ambition and the enduring power of the Gladiator legacy.
Well said.
Thank you.
Now let's delve into Kane's criticisms a bit further.
Okay.
He's pretty scathing in his review,
Yeah.
calling Gladiator the Second a truly terrible film and a derivative plot.
Yeah.
What specifically does he take issue with?
One of Kane's main criticisms is that Gladiator II relies too heavily on exposition,
Okay.
telling the audience what's happening instead of showing them.
Yeah.
He argues that this approach undermines the emotional impact of the story.
Okay.
For example, we're told that Lucius is struggling with the legacy of Maximus, but we don't really see him wrestle with those emotions in a meaningful way.
So it's a case of show, don't tell.
Right.
A fundamental principle of good storytelling that seems to be missing here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kane argues that Gladiator Tehik prioritizes spectacle over substance, focusing on grand set pieces and visual effects rather than developing characters and exploring themes in depth.
Okay.
He specifically calls out the film's over-reliance on CGI, citing examples like dog baboons, a rhino riding gladiator, and even CGI sharks.
CGI sharks.
Yes.
Now that's just getting ridiculous. It sounds like they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at the screen, hoping something will stick.
Yeah.
But does it work? Does all that spectacle actually make for a good film?
That's the debate, isn't it?
Right.
Some viewers might find the visual spectacle entertaining, while others might find it distracting and ultimately hollow.
Yeah.
Kane certainly falls into the latter camp, arguing that the film's focus on spectacle ultimately detracts from the heart of the story.
Yeah.
He misses the grounded realism and the focus on human drama that made the original Gladiator so compelling.
It's like they traded emotional depth for CGI sharks.
Yeah.
Not exactly a fair trade in my book.
Right.
But let's give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
The original Gladiator was also known for its stunning visuals and epic battle sequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this conversation so interesting.
Yeah.
Gladiator II is trying to walk a fine line between honoring the legacy of the original and forging its own path. It's embracing the spectacle that audiences expect from a Gladiator film, but perhaps at the expense of the emotional core that resonated so deeply in the first film.
It's a tough challenge.
Yeah,
And it'll be interesting to see how audiences ultimately respond.
for sure.
But before we jump to any conclusions,
Okay.
let's dive a bit deeper into Kane's criticisms
Yeah.
and see if there's any merit to his claims.
Oh, okay.
After all, even the most scathing review can offer valuable insights.
Absolutely. He argues that the film misses a crucial opportunity to really show us the emotional weight of Maximus's legacy. Think about the original Gladiator.
Yeah.
We saw Maximus's pain, his struggle, his longing for his family.
Yeah.
Those emotions were palpable, weren't they?
They absolutely were. You felt his grief, his rage, his determination.
Yeah.
It wasn't just told to us. It was woven into every aspect of Russell Crowe's performance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where Gladiator II falters. Kane points out that we're told Lucius is burdened by his father's legacy. But the film doesn't really delve into those depths. We're left with a sense of telling rather than showing.
So it becomes a more superficial exploration of the theme rather than a truly impactful one.
Yeah.
Almost like reading a historical summary versus experiencing the emotional reality.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Kane even brings up Roger Ebert's review of the original Gladiator.
Okay.
Ebert criticized the film for its dark and muddy visuals, saying he would have preferred more shots of blue skies.
Oh, really?
Ironically, Gladiator II seems to have overcorrected in that regard.
Really? How so?
Kane mentions that the sequel is awash in bright colors and sweeping vistas, but it still lacks the emotional depth and grit of the original.
Huh.
It's almost as if they focused so much on creating a visually stunning spectacle that they forgot to infuse it with heart.
So even with a brighter palette, it's missing the soul of the original.
Yeah.
That brings us back to Kane's criticism of the heavy CGI. He mentions those dog baboons and the rhino-riding gladiator moments that sound more outlandish than epic.
Those elements definitely stick out, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
It's as if the filmmakers were trying to compensate for something by piling on these visually extravagant elements.
Right. Kane argues that these CGI-laden scenes detract from the story's authenticity.
Uh-huh.
It feels like they're trying to create a video game-like experience rather than a truly immersive historical drama.
And that might be a turnoff for those looking for a more grounded and emotionally resonant story.
Right.
It seems Gladiator 2 might be prioritizing spectacle over substance,
Okay.
like Kane suggests. perhaps mistaking visual grandeur for genuine storytelling.
But wouldn't you say the original Gladiator also had its fair share of spectacle?
Oh, absolutely.
The gladiatorial combat, the grandeur of Rome, those were all visually stunning elements.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
The original had those elements.
Yeah.
But they were always in service of the story and the characters.
Yeah.
They heightened the drama, the tension, the emotional stakes.
Oh, yeah.
In Gladiator 2, it feels as if the spectacle has become the main attraction, leaving the characters and the story somewhat overshadowed.
So is Kane saying that Gladiator II is a complete failure, a cinematic disaster?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
He acknowledges that even a flawed film can have entertaining moments.
Right.
But his ultimate conclusion is that Gladiator II is a missed opportunity.
Okay.
A film that fails to live up to the legacy of the original and ultimately diminishes its impact.
Yeah.
He even goes so far as to suggest that the story of Gladiator was better left untouched.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if some stories are better left as they are, as single powerful narratives.
It definitely raises that question.
Yeah.
But I think Kane's review also offers a broader lesson about sequels in general.
Okay.
It highlights the dangers of relying too heavily on spectacle and nostalgia, reminding us that true storytelling requires heart, depth, and a genuine connection with the audience.
You know, it's interesting that he focuses on this disconnect between the spectacle and the heart of the story.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if, in trying to appeal to a wider audience with those big, flashy moments, Gladiator II lost sight of what made the original so captivating, the raw human emotions at its core.
It's a valid point.
Yeah.
The original Gladiator resonated with audiences because it tapped into universal themes of loss, revenge, and redemption. It was a story about the human spirit triumphing over adversity, even in the face of death.
Right.
Gladiator II, on the other hand, seems to be more concerned with recreating the visual grandeur of the original, perhaps at the expense of those deeper emotional themes.
But before we completely write off Gladiator II,
Okay.
let's acknowledge that critical reception has been mixed.
That's true.
While Kane's review is quite scathing,
Yeah.
other critics have been more forgiving, praising the film's visuals, action sequences, and performances.
That's true.
It seems that Gladiator II might appeal to those seeking pure entertainment, a visual feast with echoes of the original.
For sure.
But for those hoping for a deeper, more nuanced exploration of the themes and characters from Gladiator, Kane's reviews suggest that the sequel might fall short. It's a classic case of high expectations leading to potential disappointment.
And it speaks to the challenges of creating a sequel to a beloved film.
Yeah.
How do you balance honoring the original while also bringing something new to the table? It's a tightrope walk, and it seems Gladiator II might have stumbled a bit.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, exploring both the positive and negative aspects of Gladiator II. We've delved into the critical response, dissected the themes and characters, and even pondered the very nature of sequels. But I think it's time to address the elephant in the room, the monkey in the room, perhaps, and talk about Caracalla's peculiar companion, Dondis.
Ah, yes, the monkey.
Yeah.
Kane makes a rather interesting observation about Caracalla's relationship with Dondis. He points out that amidst all the political intrigue and bloodshed, this strange bond between the emperor and his pet monkey feels surprisingly genuine and emotionally resonant.
It's an unexpected detail that seems to have struck a chord with Kane.
Yeah.
He even suggests that Caracalla's affection for Dondis feels more authentic than many of the other relationships in the film.
Right.
It makes you wonder if, in a world of brutal gladiatorial combat and political machinations, this simple connection with an animal offered Caracalla a sense of solace or escape.
That's a fascinating interpretation.
Yeah.
Perhaps Dondis represents a glimmer of humanity in a character consumed by power and paranoia. Or maybe it's just a quirky detail meant to add a touch of whimsy to an otherwise dark and violent film.
Either way, it's a detail that sticks with you, isn't it? It's a reminder that even in the most unexpected places, we can find moments of tenderness and connection.
It certainly adds a layer of intrigue to Caracalla's character, doesn't it? And it speaks to the filmmaker's willingness to explore unexpected facets of these historical figures.
It's like they're saying, hey, even the most ruthless emperors are still human beings with complexities and contradictions.
Exactly. And it reminds us that history isn't just a collection of dates and battles, but a tapestry of human stories filled with triumphs and tragedies, love and loss, ambition and madness. Gladiator II, for all its flaws, attempts to tap into that human element, even if it doesn't always succeed.
And I think that's what we're left with at the end of this deep dive, a sense of both appreciation and disappointment. Appreciation for the ambition, the scale, the attempt to continue a beloved story, but also disappointment that it doesn't quite reach the same heights as its predecessor.
It's a film that's trying to do a lot of things, honor the legacy of the original, introduce new characters and storylines, deliver epic spectacle, and perhaps in trying to do too much, it loses sight of the core elements that made Gladiator such a powerful and enduring film.
It's like that old saying, less is more. Sometimes the most impactful stories are the ones that focus on a few key elements and execute them flawlessly.
And in the case of Gladiator to second, perhaps a simpler, more character-driven approach would have been more effective.
Well, I think we've thoroughly explored the world of Gladiator to second, from its critical reception to its themes and characters, its visual spectacle, and even its monkey business.
We've certainly covered a lot of ground, and I hope our listeners have gained a deeper understanding of the challenges and complexities of creating a sequel to a beloved film.
Absolutely. And whether you agree with Kane's scathing review or found yourself entertained by the spectacle, the most important thing is to engage with art critically, to ask questions, and to form your own opinions.
Because ultimately, the beauty of film lies in its subjectivity. What resonates with one person might fall flat for another. And that's okay. It's what makes these conversations so interesting.
So keep those conversations going. Share your thoughts on Gladiator Second with your friends, family, and fellow film enthusiasts. And while you're at it, why not revisit the original Gladiator? It's a timeless classic that continues to captivate audiences even after all these years.
And if you're looking for other historical epics to explore, there are plenty of options out there, from Ridley Scott's own Kingdom of Heaven to films like Braveheart, The Last of the Mohicans, and Troy. Each of these films offers a unique perspective on history, bringing to life different periods and cultures with stunning visuals and compelling stories.
And who knows? Maybe one of these films will be the subject of our next deep dive. So be sure to let us know what movies or TV shows you'd like us to explore in future episodes. You can leave a comment below, send us an email, or connect with us on social media. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and dive into new and fascinating subjects.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those brains buzzing.